There's a reason most people stay average forever. Not because they're lazy, not because they lack intelligence, but because they unknowingly sabotage themselves from the very beginning. Right now, somewhere in the world, there are people who will master a skill in 1 year, while others will struggle with the same thing for 10. Same resources, same access, same time, different results. Why? Because one follows a path, and the other keeps guessing. This is the story of that difference. And once you understand it, you won't be able to unsee it. Long before modern schools, before online courses, before learn-fast systems, there was a method so powerful, it turned ordinary people into legends. Not through talent, not through shortcuts, but through a process so simple, most people today would reject it immediately. In a quiet village surrounded by mountains and silence, lived a boy named Yamato. He wasn't special. No noble blood. No connections. No advantages. But he had something far more dangerous. Obsession. Every morning before the sun rose, Yamato would stand near the dusty road, waiting. Not for people. For them. Samurai. They would pass through the village like shadows, silent, composed, untouchable. Their presence alone commanded respect. They didn't speak loudly. They didn't move unnecessarily. But everyone felt it. Power. Yamato watched them every single day. The way they walked. The way they held their swords. The way they existed. And slowly, a thought took over his mind. I want that. Not the sword. Not the status. The control, the discipline, the unshakable presence. At 16, he made a decision that would define his life. He picked up a wooden sword and began training alone. At first, it felt exciting. Every movement made him feel closer to his dream. He mimicked what he had seen. Horizontal strikes, vertical cuts, forward thrusts. Again, and again, and again. Hours turned into days. Days turned into months. But something was wrong. Very wrong. The harder he trained, the worse it felt. His movements were stiff, unnatural. The sword didn't flow, it resisted him. Frustration slowly replaced excitement. So he did what most people do when effort doesn't work. He added more information. He found old texts about legendary warriors. He studied battle strategies. He memorized techniques. He learned everything, except how to actually improve. A year passed, and the truth became impossible to ignore. He wasn't getting better. He was getting stuck. One afternoon, as the sun burned low over the trees, Yamato was practicing near the forest. Strike, miss, reset, strike, awkward, reset. Then, a voice, cold, direct. You're doing everything wrong. Yamato froze. Slowly, he turned around. Standing behind him was a man unlike anyone he had ever seen up close. Old but not weak. Scarred but not broken. 2 swords rested at his waist. A real samurai. Yamato's chest tightened. I'm trying to learn, he said. The man walked closer, eyes sharp, observing every detail. How long? 1 year. Silence. The kind that feels heavier than words. And what improved? Yamato couldn't answer, because he knew the truth. Nothing. The samurai stepped forward and took the wooden sword from his hands. Then he said something Yamato would never forget. You are not training. A pause. You are repeating your mistakes. The words hit harder than any strike. Every time you move incorrectly, you are teaching your body to fail. Yamato felt something crack inside him. All that effort, all that time, wasted. So what should I do? He asked, his voice barely steady. I've studied everything, techniques, strategies. That's your problem. The samurai cut him off instantly. You tried to understand before you learned. He pointed at Yamato's stance. You built from the top instead of the foundation. Another step closer. You wanted to be unique before becoming correct. Yamato stood frozen, because deep down he knew it was true. The samurai looked at him one last time. There is only one path to mastery. Not multiple. Not personalized. Not flexible. One. And you skipped it. Yamato's heartbeat rose. What path? The man turned slightly, as if the answer itself carried weight. 3 stages. A brief silence. First you obey. Then you break. Finally you transcend. He looked back at Yamato. If you skip the first, you will fail at all 3. Yamato took a step forward. Teach me. The samurai studied him. Not his words. His intent. After a long pause, he nodded. Tomorrow at dawn. Then he turned and walked away. But before disappearing into the trees, he spoke one last sentence. The first step will destroy your ego. Yamato didn't sleep that night. Not because he was afraid, but because, for the first time, he realized something terrifying. He had no idea how to learn. And tomorrow, everything would change. Dawn arrived without mercy. The air was cold, still, unforgiving. Yamato had been waiting long before the first light touched the ground. Not out of discipline, but because something inside him refused to miss this moment. Footsteps approached. Slow, controlled. The samurai emerged from the shadows of the trees, exactly as promised. No greeting. No wasted movement. Stand. Yamato straightened immediately. Today you begin, the master said. A pause. Not training, learning. He stepped closer, his eyes scanning Yamato's posture like a blade cutting through illusion. At this stage, you will not think. Another step. You will not question. Closer. You will not create. He stopped directly in front of him. You will obey. The word felt heavy. Uncomfortable. Yamato had spent a year trying to figure things out on his own. Now he was being told to stop thinking completely. His ego resisted instantly. Just copy, that's it. But he said nothing. Because deep down, he remembered where his thinking had led him. Nowhere. The master stepped back and assumed a stance. Watch. His body shifted into position, simple, yet impossibly precise. Feet grounded. Hips aligned. Spine straight. Nothing flashy. Nothing impressive. But something about it felt complete. Copy. Yamato mirrored him. Immediately, the master moved. No. He adjusted Yamato's foot slightly. Too far. A small correction to the hip. Too loose. A slight push on the shoulder. Too tense. Each movement was microscopic. Barely visible. But each one changed everything. Again. Yamato reset. Again. Correction. Again. Correction. Minutes passed. Then more. Then something strange began to happen. They weren't moving. At all. Breathe, the master said. Inhale 3 seconds. Hold 2. Exhale 4. Yamato obeyed. At first, it felt ridiculous. He came here to learn swordsmanship. Not breathing. But the master didn't move. Didn't explain. Didn't justify. Only repeated one word. Again. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. 15. Yamato's legs began to burn. His back tightened. His mind started screaming. This is useless. This is a waste of time. I could be learning real techniques. Finally, he broke. Master, when do we start training? The samurai turned his head slowly. And for the first time, there was something sharp in his gaze. You think this is not training? Silence. You think mastery begins with movement? A step closer. You want advanced techniques with a broken foundation. His voice lowered. That is why you failed alone. Yamato felt the weight of those words. Heavy, undeniable. Listen carefully, the master continued. Mastery is not built in kilometers. A pause. It is built in millimeters. He pointed to Yamato's stance. Every future movement you will ever perform depends on this. Another pause. And right now, this is wrong. That day, they did almost nothing. And yet, it exhausted Yamato more than any training he had ever done. Because for the first time, he wasn't escaping his mistakes. He was confronting them. Directly, relentlessly. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. And the pattern never changed. No advanced techniques. No sparring. No creativity. Just posture, breathing, basic movement. Repeated. Over and over and over again. At first, Yamato hated it. His mind fought every second. This is too slow. I'm wasting time. Others are learning faster. But something strange was happening beneath the frustration. Something quiet, invisible. His body was changing. Not in strength, in control. The posture that once felt unnatural became effortless. The breathing that felt forced became automatic. The movements that felt awkward began to flow. Without thought. One morning, after 3 months of silence and repetition, the master finally introduced something new. A single strike. Simple, clean, precise. Watch. He demonstrated once, then handed the sword to Yamato. 1,000 times. Yamato blinked. 1,000. Exactly as I did it. No faster. No stronger. No different. Identical. The first 100 felt easy. The second tiring. By the third 100, his arms burned. By the fifth, his mind started drifting. By the seventh, frustration returned. Why am I doing this? This is pointless repetition. But he didn't stop. Because this time, he trusted the process. Then, something happened. Around repetition 400. No warning. No signal. Just chain. The movement executed itself. Perfectly. Effortlessly. Without him thinking. For a split second, it didn't feel like he was controlling the sword. It felt like the sword was moving on its own. Yamato froze. His breath caught. Did you feel it? The master's voice came from behind him. Yamato nodded slowly. He couldn't explain it. But he knew. Something had shifted. This is the beginning, the master said. When the body learns, the mind becomes unnecessary. He stepped closer. Most people never reach this point because they quit before repetition becomes transformation. Yamato looked at his hands. For the first time, they didn't feel clumsy. They felt capable. Months passed, and the same process repeated. New basic techniques, same structure, same rule, perfect repetition. Eventually, Yamato knew only a handful of movements, but those movements were part of him, not memorized, not forced, embedded. One night, something unexpected happened. The master woke him up suddenly. Stand. Half asleep, Yamato grabbed the sword. Vertical strike. Without thinking, he executed it. Perfectly. Even in darkness. Even without preparation. The master nodded slightly. Now you are beginning to learn. But Yamato had started noticing something strange. Other students, other warriors, they knew far more techniques than him. Dozens, hundreds. They could name them all, explain them, demonstrate them. And yet, when they moved, something felt off. Empty, like they were performing, not embodying. One morning, Yamato finally asked, "Master, why do they know more but feel weaker?" For the first time, the master smiled. Because they are trapped. A pause. In learning without mastering. And in that moment, Yamato realized something unsettling. There was another danger. Not failure, not ignorance, but something far worse. Endless learning, with no transformation. And he was about to understand exactly why. The master didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked past Yamato slowly, as if the question itself needed space. They are trapped, he repeated, because they confuse knowing with becoming. He stopped near a tree and drew a small circle in the dirt with the tip of his sword. This is where most people live. Yamato stepped closer. Inside the circle, the master made dozens of tiny marks. Techniques, concepts, ideas. A pause. They collect them. Another pause. But they never become them. Yamato watched in silence, because he had seen it. Warriors who could explain everything, but execute nothing with true precision. They learned something new before mastering the last, the master continued. They chase complexity to avoid simplicity. He looked at Yamato. You didn't. A brief silence. You stayed. The words landed deeper than praise, because Yamato knew how close he had been to quitting. How many times his mind had tried to escape the repetition. How long will I stay in this stage? He asked. The master erased the circle with one smooth motion. You're already leaving it. Yamato frowned. Leaving? Yes. A pause. Now you will break. That same afternoon, something unexpected happened. Another man entered the training ground. Different posture, different presence, where Yamato's master was calm and grounded. This one felt explosive, sharp, aggressive, unpredictable. You will train with him, the master said. Yamato's eyes narrowed slightly. But his style is different, the master finished. Good. The first session was chaos. Everything contradicted what Yamato had learned. Higher stance, faster attacks, less patience. It felt wrong, unstable, dangerous. His body resisted. His mind struggled. This isn't how it's supposed to be. But the new instructor didn't explain, didn't slow down, only demanded. Again, faster, commit. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, mornings with one master, afternoons with another. Two systems, two philosophies, two truths that seemed to collide. At first, it felt like regression. His movements became confused, timing inconsistent, confidence shaken. But then, something began to shift. Not on the surface, but underneath. He started noticing patterns, not in the techniques, but in the principles. Both masters, despite their differences, were teaching the same invisible truths. Balance, timing, energy flow, awareness. The forms were different, but the foundation, identical. One morning during sparring, it happened. Without thinking, Yamato blocked using the grounded stance of his first master, and countered instantly with the explosive force of the second. Fluid, natural, seamless. He stopped. What was that? The second master stepped back, eyes sharp. You tell me. I didn't choose it, Yamato said slowly. It just happened. From the edge of the field, his first master spoke. Good. A pause. You are no longer copying. Another. You are understanding. This was the second stage. Not rebellion, not rejection, but transformation. Yamato was no longer bound to a single way. He could adapt, combine, create, but something still felt incomplete. Like he was close to something, but not fully there. Months turned into a year. His skill grew rapidly, faster than ever before. He could face multiple opponents, react under pressure, adjust without hesitation. And yet, his mind was still present, still choosing, still deciding. Use this technique. Switch to that. Now counter. Faster than before, but still there. One evening, after an intense session, Yamato approached his master. I feel stuck again. The master nodded. Good. Yamato blinked. Good. Yes. A pause. Because now you are ready to lose everything. The next words changed everything. There is a final stage. Silence. And to enter it, the master looked directly into his eyes. You must forget. Yamato frowned. Forget what? Everything. At first, it sounded impossible, even absurd. Years of training, just to let it go. But the master didn't explain further. Instead, training changed again. No new techniques, no instructions, no corrections. Only one thing. Fight. Different opponents, different styles, different conditions, every single day. At first, Yamato relied on what he knew, combining techniques, adapting strategies, winning sometimes, losing often. But slowly, something began to break. Not his skill, his dependence on it. The labels disappeared. Technique names faded. Decisions became slower, then unnecessary. And one day, it happened. 3 opponents surrounding him. No time to think. No space to plan. And then, nothing. No thoughts. No strategy. No Yamato. Only movement. His body flowed. Blocking, turning, striking. Effortless. Precise. Unconscious. Seconds later, it was over. All three on the ground. Yamato stood still, breathing calm, mind empty. I don't remember what I did, he said quietly. From a distance, his master watched. You didn't. A pause. For the first time. You stopped fighting. Yamato looked at his hands. They felt the same. But something inside him had changed completely. There are no techniques anymore, the master continued. Only response. That was the final stage. Not control. Not mastery. But unity. Years later, Yamato became a master himself. Students came from far away to learn. And they all asked the same question. How many techniques do you know? Yamato always gave the same answer. None. A pause. And all of them. Because he understood something most never would. Techniques are tools, not the goal. The real goal is to become someone who no longer needs them. And now, the truth returns to you. You don't lack talent. You don't lack potential. You're just trying to skip the part that matters most. So choose one skill, one path, one master, and start where everyone else refuses to start. At the bottom, because that's where mastery begins.